Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Christian Biscuiter, and today is going to be a super fun episode where we're going to be at least trying to do a fade with two different techniques. So the first technique will be to try and split from a cone. We're going to split 5 sections to make a full skein of yarn, and those 5 sections we will be dyeing them different colors to try to attempt a fade within the same skein of yarn. And the second technique, I think you might have seen it with Rebecca from Chemnitz, where she does a donut. So basically she's caking some yarn and we're just going to be dunking this. So we're going to be using the same dyes for both skein of yarn, and then we're going to see what happens from there, and how different the color will be at the end of this fun experiment. So let's get into this. So we are going to be using this blend, which is 75% merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. So I'm going to be doing the gradient, and to do that I will be using this meterage so I can determine how many meters I will have, because I want to separate one skein into 5 section of the gradient that we're going to be doing. So to do that, I'm going to start by doing this. Oh, I should probably grab the thing I used. Where is my lazy Kate? We're going to be using the lazy Kate as well. At least we're going to try, just to keep it. So we're going to be separating this in 5 sections of I don't think it's going to be super easy with this. Okay, we're gonna figure it out. So we're going to need 84 meters for each section. Okay, this is not super friendly. I'll do my best, I swear. There we go. We just needed to figure it out. So the gradient, I haven't decided yet which color I'm going to be using, but we're most likely going to be ending up with with a rainbow, because you know me, friends, I love my rainbows. So this one will be a little bit trickier to make sure that we're not doing anything weird and tangling any braiding, so we're going to be careful with that. Okay, so we've got our first 84 meter. So I'm going to, I will be using those cotton threads to do 8 shapes in here to avoid any tangling when we are going to be soaking and dyeing the yarn. So I want to avoid any tangling, so I'll probably do one more after this one. And you see, I'm trying to have this as loose as possible, so that way when it's going to be dyed, we will have enough room. There won't be any chances of, well, there will still be chances of it, but there won't be too much natural resistance created by that. Okay, so we have our first section. So I'm just going to do this one here, right here. I'm going to put this at 0, and we're going to do this one to make it easier on the thing. There we go, and we're on our way. So you could be doing this with a niddy noddy as well. It's just that I have this one here and I find it much easier than a niddy noddy. It's technically electric, so I could plug it in, but I don't feel like the sound would drive me nuts, so I'm not doing it this morning. Oops. I got distracted and I've got too many meters. I just need to get back a little bit. Oops, my bad. Okay, so that should be good. So same thing, we're going to do the 8 figure with our cotton thread. And the main reason I'm using cotton thread is just because it's not going to dye and it's easy to spot when you're working with it, because there will be a high contrast with the yarn. Like this, and the third one, just so we are very much certain that we are not going to tangle anything. So we're going to do a third section right here. 0 out here. This. Okay, so we've got our third. We're going to do. Then we are going to do a third one, just to be on the safe side, right here. Okay, so I think I'm going to remove those sections very carefully. So that we can make room for the last 2 sections that we need to do. And I'm going to be very careful to ensure we don't tangle anything in here. Okay. Perfect, I think. Okay, so those are good. I'm going to put this at 0. And then I'm going to move this like that. We're gonna go over here, put this back at the right position. So let's do this. To do the H shape, you make sure that you split this and you have your strand like this. And you just tie a knot like that. And then you have your H shape. So we will repeat that for 3. Okay, so now we're going to zero this out and do the last section. Okay, so let's Okay, and now we are done. We are going to hopefully I did not tangle anything by doing this. So. Okay, we're going to try to keep those as separate as possible. Okay, and I'm going to be silking them. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go and do a cake with the same cone, just so we can try to do a gradient in a cake, just to try to compare both options. So I'm going to be caking this, and I'm going to do so we can do the comparison. There we go. So we have 400 meters here, and I'm going to go and work on this fun project. See you soon. Okay, so I really found the right idea. So the minis that we've done to do, the 5 minis that we've created to try to do that gradient, they're pre-soaking right now. We are not going to be pre-soaking this. We're just going to do it directly into the cauldron, and we're going to do 1% stock solution of deep magenta and of delphinium blue. I'm going to do 200 milliliters because we're going to be using those stock solutions for the minis, because I think we're going to do like when we were doing the color theory wheels and stuff, where we were going from one side of the spectrum to the other. So this time we're going to go from deep magenta to delphinium blue in right there. So I'm just going to do the math once we've focused on the cake one. But for the cake one, we're going to go with the deep magenta first. And then once all the deep magenta will have been struck and absorbed, we're going to be adding the delphinium blue, and we're most likely going to be ending up with a white at the center, but it's fine. We can, sorry, I'm losing my voice and I don't know why. So we're just going to quickly do this stock solution. So it's going to be 1 gram per 100 milliliter, and since we need more, in this case, I'm going to be measuring 2 gram for 200 milliliters. So we have our 1% stock solution. And the first thing we need to do is make sure that we have our respirator on, because we only have one pair of lungs and we need to protect them. Okay, let's measure this. Always make sure that your scale is at 0 before doing anything. There we go. Now we're going to measure the delphinium blue, zeroing out our scale. Perfect. So We can move this, and we are going to be adding our liquid. Okay, so now that the dry is no longer dry and that it is wet, we can remove our respirator. Going to give this a good stir. To make sure that we don't have any clumps of dry powder in here. And as you know, I have a tendency to enjoy making pink, purples, and blues, so this is why we have the colors that we've chosen. So now we're gonna go into the pot so that I can show you what we're doing. And as you can see, I'm pre-soaking directly into the pot I'm going to be using for my minis, just to make it easy on me and to make sure that I don't tangle anything. So far, we are pretty good for the tangle thing. So I'm going to measure 100 milliliters of my deep magenta in this one. And right in, we're going to do a little stir here. So I've already started to heat the water because we know that pots take longer to reach the right temperature, which is between 85 to 95 Celsius. And I've already added my 1 teaspoon of citric acid, and I'm just going to let it soak. And I'm going to try to avoid touching it, which will be, it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie to you because I like to stir and move things, and this is going to be a work of patience that I need to take a deep breath and enjoy the process. Sometimes I have a tendency to be a little impatient, but it's part of the charm, right? Hopefully. So I'm just going to make sure that I detangle those minis while I'm waiting for the cake to sink. But you know what? It proved that there's still quite a bit of lanolin in that, even though it's superwash yarn. So when it comes to yarn blanks, so the bare yarns and stuff like that, sorry, if you have a favorite like brand, and if you have a favorite, what's the word? If you have a favorite yarn in general, a favorite blend, favorite weight, and you know that you want to work with it often, it might be a good investment for you to purchase cones like the one that I showed you earlier, simply because you have much more for your buck in there. I think in the cone that I showed you, there's like 2,000 yards, maybe more. I will have to double check that. I will try to remember to check it and like give you the information. So that way you can break them into skeins that of the length you want. If you want minis, if you want 50 grams, if you want 100 grams, so you can do exactly what you want. So this is just food for thought. See, I'm already touching it. Okay. I need to stop touching the but look, it's starting to slowly grab like the color, and it's a good thing that it's going to take longer, so we have more chances of having colors go through the entire thing of yarn. Like ideally, if we can have like a very soft pink in the middle, I'll be super happy. I will be super so psyched about that. And I'm going to already set aside 100 milliliter of the delphinium blue, so that way I will not forget to I will not forget to use it. You know what I should have done is I should have measured the weight of those minis before soaking them in water. So that way I would have been more precise. Oh well, that's life. Oops. I forgot to do that. Okay. Okay. So I will go ahead and I will go and pre-mixed my my dyes for the minis that we're going to be dyeing once they are finished pre-soaked. So I will see you in a little bit. So as you can see, I did my math. It looks super botched, but oh, I should probably put the right containers at the right spot. There we go. But that way, I am good. And I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to be measuring my things properly. Okay, so those are that. And I need my 7.5 here. Perfect. So it's just going to make my life much more easier. Okay, so this one I don't have the... This one I will need my pipette. There we go. So that's for my deep magenta. So now we can do here delphinium blue. 2.5. So no, that's 10 milliliter. Here we're going to do up to my 10 milliliter. Perfect. And then here I'm going to do up to my 10 milliliter line. Perfect. And same thing here, just adding a tiny bit. So we can go up to my 10 milliliter line. Okay, so we've done the mixing. I still have quite a bit of this. So it will ensure that we have a gradient that will go smoothly. So this is why I wanted to ensure that we had similar depth of shades over here. So this is the math that I did. So I did my 1% over there on each end. So we will be ending with the fully saturated color. So that's for that. I will see you a little bit later once we've finished the pre-soak, and then yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, so the pre-soak is done, so I will be able to start this. So I'll have to try to be as careful as possible. And I already added my... I could have done that in jars, probably. Oh well, that's fine. So I'm going to turn on the heat. Come on. Here we go. Okay, here I can see this. Okay, so perfect. So I follow the order and I've put them in a circle so that way I would avoid any mistakes. When it comes to the order. Oh, shoot. And I've made a mistake. So this is the 50-50 and so this is the color I should have done. That's okay. I grabbed the wrong one, but it doesn't seem to be that much of a problem since there's a big difference between those colors. So that's life. It's gonna be pretty anyways. There we go. Oh, I forgot to turn on this. That this is a very pretty grape color. Okay, and then we have the last one here, which will be my deep magenta. So it's still going to be pretty. It's not going to be like a gradient in the sense that I thought it was going to be, but it's going to be very pretty no matter what. Okay, so I've got all of the colors submerged. There we go. Oh well, it's not too bad. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick. Did I forget? Okay, so we're going to take a quick look also at our cake. So the cake is now fully submerged, which is good. So I'm going to, and from the outside, it seems that we've got the color penetration through the center of it, which is fantastic. And this is also the reason why I wanted to use deep magenta as the first color, because I know that it takes a little bit longer for the color to penetrate properly. So we shall see what happens then. Okay, so I will see you later because I need to do 30 minutes for the minis. So we'll see you in at least 30 minutes. So we still have a lot of color in this, and like I think it's going to take forever for us to do everything. So I'm just going to dunk this skein of yarn to help absorb the deep magenta. And I just turned off the heat on the other stuff so that we could let it completely cool off before washing off any excess dye. So once we are clear with the deep magenta, I will come back to add the delphinium blue. So I will see you later. Okay, so the skein did unravel, so I did put a reusable tie wrap on it. So what we're going to do, because there is still some, this is hot. There is still some deep magenta in it, but that's fine. We're gonna work with it. It's already much better color-wise. So I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to grab our cake and we're going to transfer it real quick over here so we can add the delphinium blue. I'm not going to be adding the skein right away. I'm going to wait for the majority of the color to strike within the cake of yarn before doing anything. So we're going to let this strike as much as possible to create this like ombre gradient that we want, and then we're gonna come back and see what's up with it. So I will see you later. So we're going to be reincorporating that skein because I can see that we still have some colors left, but I should not have used my fingers. So we're going to let this marinate for another half hour, and then I'm going to, you can see there was not that much color left. So we're just going, I guess we could probably turn it off now. And we're going to let it completely cool off before we wash off any excess dye. So I will see you later. So it's time now to wash off any excess dye. So as you can see, I've took them separately, and I'm going to be very intentional and careful to not move them more than need to be. So I'm just going to be covering them, and after that we're going to let this sit um, and just let it soak, and hopefully we won't have any bleeding. We shouldn't have much bleeding because I didn't see color, but there's deep magenta, and deep magenta does bleed, so I wouldn't be too surprised if there was some bleeding. So I'll let it soak for 15 minutes, like 10-15 minutes, and we're gonna be back in. Okay, so I see a tiny bit of, is it actually color? Yeah, I think there's a little bit of color in here. However, I'm not going to be moving that too much, so I'm going to very delicately put this in my spin dryer, and I will try to do something with this after to make sure that we have, yeah, there was not much color actually. There was a hint, but really not that bad. And now it's time for our cake, which I'm sure there will be bleeding from for this guy. And we're also going to be washing off the thing. So here it seems like we have quite a bit of color, but it's on. Oh no, they just did a miss. It's mostly the color residual on the sides of the. I need to go grab something for this. Okay, so it's just the color on the side of my pot. So it's not. There's not as much color as I thought there was in there. Okay, I will grab a mop. Okay. So I know that this one doesn't really need that much soaking, so we should be good with this one. It's just the cake itself that I fear will need a little bit more love. I think we have a tangle of yarn over here, so that's a problem for dry cake. Shouldn't be too bad then. Just going to do this. Okay, I'm just going to soak this one. You can see that we have pink in the center. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to let it soak once again for like 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and see what we are having had. But from what I can see, we will have some layers of colors. But really, what I'm seeing is that if we had a non-superwash yarn, we would most likely have a better coverage inside since it takes longer for the color to fully strike. But I'm not surprised by those results so far. But we're going to be opening up the cake once it's dry enough to like reskein it into an actual full skein of yarn. So anyways, I'm going to let this soak. Okay. Okay, so we have a hint of color, which I was expecting, but it's faint, so I'm not too concerned about it. So I'm going to put this. I don't think it's going to be doing good in the spin dryer, but we'll try to remove as much excess water in there as possible. So I will see you once that's all ready to be shown, dry and all. So I will see you most likely tomorrow. Okay, and here's the result of my attempt to do a fade. So just wanted to show you the yarn that I added into the pot to catch the excess dye that we had. It turned out pretty fun. This would go into my sale bins at markets because I usually have cheaper yarn from my yarn experiment and all that, so that people can have a little taste of the kind of fiber that I have and the kind of yarn that I have. Hello Zoe, nice to see you. Can you move your little butt, s'il vous plaît? No, can you not do this? Not this morning. Not this morning. You can have this one. Okay? Okay, well. So, and here's the result for the cake. As you can see, it created this heathered effect, and I do believe that's because this is a 2-ply yarn, okay? Which means that the resistance within the fiber itself is slightly different than in a 4-ply or 3-ply or like an 8-ply yarn. And it created almost a glazed effect onto the yarn, but you can see that in the center we have a lighter stuff. We barely have any white left, which is why I've chosen deep magenta to do this specific experiment, so that way we would be able to like attempt to do something. But I would be curious to try this technique with a superwash versus non-superwash yarn, so this might be something that I would do in a future episode of this series. And I think it's super fun. It would make a freaking pretty shawl, in my personal opinion, but I really like pink and purple, so I'm very biased. And here we have my attempt at doing a fade, but like with more like a gradient effect. And honestly, I think it's very pretty. I really like how it turned out. However, it would not fade perfectly into each other. So I think the big mistake I did is that I went very drastic with my proportion of dye. So I think if I had added a tiny bit of the deep magenta into my, was it blue hyacinth? Yeah. We would have a bitter fade in the end. So if I were to redo this, I would definitely try to incorporate a little bit of deep magenta within the blue, so that we would have a more smooth transition through the entire skein. But honestly, I'm very proud, since it's the first time I was trying this technique. So I'm pretty proud of myself, if I can say so. And maybe next time I could do just like 10 meters of each color, so it would be a smaller skein, and we would end up with like a 50 meter skein. So it's mini, basically. It would be a very mini, just to have an idea. But the way that I did this is basically the way you could do self-stripping yarn as well, but this one is a very smaller scale than what you would need to do a successful self-stripping yarn, just so you know. At some point I will attempt to do a self-stripping yarn, however I just don't really have the space to do it. That's the one thing. But that's just an idea in the wind like that. Maybe I will manifest it at some point. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I will see you next one very soon. Bye!